First of all, I really want to thank Senator Schatz and Senator Wicker for holding this hearing. It's a really important issue, and obviously, as you said, Chairman, so many senators attending, it's obvious that it's something of interest to all of us, but it's something of urgency for the nation as a whole. What's impressive to me is that telehealth, if you add that into the sophistication of the devices that are measuring biometrics these days, if you add that on top of the advances that are being made in science where you can actually implant chips in people that can release medicine at certain specific needed times, the advances in the way they build upon each other is really opening up an extraordinary opportunity to achieve what's already been said in this hearing. Many of the objectives that we have, from lowering costs, increasing quality of health. I'm just glad that we have such a great panel here, but I really want to focus in on the guy from Newark. No bias whatsoever there. But I just, first of all, want to welcome him. Panasonic has been a partner of mine for years now, and is an industry leader, an important player in this space. And their company's North American headquarters, I hear, is an extraordinary city. I just want to jump in because you've now mentioned it a number of times, Mr. Ritting. There's no bias here, sir. If there was bias, I'd be giving Dr. Gibbons a lot more love because of his great haircut. But just real quick, Mr. Ritting, because you've mentioned this a number of times, the issues of spectrum. And it's something that I have a lot of concern about because in many ways government has a tremendous amount of authority and control over how we use spectrum. And so from new apps, wireless devices, telehealth, all of these issues come down to the availability of spectrum. And we have an obligation and responsibility to ensure this scarce resource is being utilized as efficiently and effectively as possible in order to reap these vast benefits that we're talking about. Senator Rubio and I joined together to introduce the Wi-Fi Innovation Act, which aims to make more spectrum available for unlicensed and Wi-Fi purposes. So, Mr. Ritting, how important is spectrum and telehealth equation? Can you just sort of give a little bit more of the urgency that you've already sort of tangentially touched upon?
We believe it's, well, if you, I'm going to quote Chairman Wicker, is that if you don't have broadband, you don't have telehealth, right? And so Wi-Fi is a crucial part of that because it's part of the equation of getting the information from one point to the other. And right now what we see is it's very difficult to get access to some of the available spectrum that might be sitting there just waiting to be used, but we can't. And so that's a problem. It's also a problem of trying to figure out how to allow better access to spectrum, but at the same time, and this is a juggling challenge, at the same time preserve some of the protected parts of the spectrum that may have bearing on international agreements or reciprocity with other agencies in other lands. And so we deeply endorse the idea of being able to apply for and access commercially more of the spectrum because it will open up more opportunities for range, for bandwidth, and that is the key to the whole equation unless we come up with other ways of communicating. And there are other ways, but not quite as prevalent or as inexpensive as Wi-Fi is.
And so, in short, would you agree with me that you cannot have an effective and innovative national telehealthcare system without equally effective national spectrum policy that supports and serves that system?
We absolutely agree with both of those initiatives.
And so the urgency for us to re-examine the allocations that are already made to make sure they're using it efficiently is, would you say, to re-examine it, especially in terms of our emphasis on health and safety, it's something that really Congress should be doing?
I believe that.
Okay. Just shifting in the last seconds that I have, you're doing incredible work in Newark, and I just want to know, what are some of the unique needs? We've heard a lot about the rural challenges, but what are some of the unique needs to urban communities as they face really in accessing the benefits of telehealth?
What we discovered was not an expected finding in that we can understand rural availability of broadband and why it's not there. What I did not dream of running into at the time was the unavailability of broadband in urban settings, excuse me. And to be able to be, a heartbeat away from New York City and not be able to get a signal in a, structure that had thousands of tenants in it just boggled my mind.
Yeah.
So I believe they share some of the same concerns.
And we therefore have an urgency for broadband penetration to really focus on rural and urban together. Thank
Sure.
you very much. Mr. Chairman, how did I do on time, sir?
You did very well, and I appreciate you mentioning parochial matters. Let me just ask you this, Senator Booker. If someone missed the peak of the cherry blossom season here in Washington, D.C., is there any place within a 3-hour drive where people might be able to see cherry blossoms?
Sir, you have just earned so much love from me. Forget shots. I used to have a bromance with him. It's over. The number one city in America, in fact, for cherry blossoms is Newark, New Jersey. And yes, the peak has just passed this weekend, but you still can catch some beautiful pictures. Or, sir, you can go on my Instagram account and see some of them right now.